Alright, so today's piece is by Salvatore Sciarrino. It's called Introduzione All'Oscuro, and it's for chamber orchestra. The full instrumentation is 1111, 1110, and then 11111. So, yeah, just sort of the bare minimum to be to firmly be a chamber orchestra. There's no percussion, no nothing special, um, which is kind of interesting. There's not even any auxiliary instruments really. Um, Although I think you do need an alto flute for the flautist to double on. And this score, I apologize that it's a little bit of a bad quality scan, but there's all kinds of performance notes here. So the circle at the end of crescendi, decrescendi from niente, and there's timbral trills in the flute, which indicate like alternating between two different harmonics, basically. Covering the mouthpiece with the lips. Let's see. Rapid glissandi. There's some oboe multiphonics. There's a whole bunch of clarinet. Like timbral trills and multiphonics, but they're the quiet clarinet multiphonics that are sort of dyads around the first break. There's like a couple spots on the instrument where there's like several different fingerings for a single pitch, and Sciarrino's playing with that. The bassoon has some multiphonics. The brass has fast tremolo things and also breath tone. And then, of course, the strings have the widest variety of effects. So, wide vibrato, trills on harmonics, harmonic glissandi, just harmonics themselves, bowed tremolo, jeté, extreme uses of dynamics and register, which play into the specific techniques that he's calling for. If you're interested in learning more about Sciarrino, I will put the episode number in the subtitle here. This is like a composer we've looked at in a few different episodes. So the first one will be the one with his bio and stuff. Okay, let's look at the earcom info here. Dedicated to Riccardo Scialli, and interpreted first by the London Sinfonietta, directed by Oliver Knussen. In general, we call an introduction a piece that precedes another, announces or suggests elements, sometimes in contrasting characters. This is not the case in this piece, where the word fully assumes the meaning of an expectation. In Introduzione All'Oscuro, the imitation, the transfer of certain physiological sounds is obvious, a kind of objectification, a mute dramatization of the heartbeat and breathing. Here the music tends to invert the terms of absence and presence, displacing them towards what is spectral. Big air quotes. What is announced is not perceived. What remains is a blind and enigmatic movement and acceleration and deceleration of periodic pulsations. A few reminiscences of songs appear, shreds of reality in this climate of tension, not only with the magical indifference of things that are familiar to us, but even more, almost like limpid epiphanies. So, I do vaguely recall the heartbeat and breathing stuff. that is a big part of this piece. And I do remember a climax culminating with some more like melodic, typically musical things. This piece left a really big impression on me when I first listened to a recording of it, like years and years ago. So I'm excited to get back into it. And it's a very economical piece in terms of the ensemble size and the duration. It's only about 14 minutes long. We may see a lot of effects here that are also a big part of Quaderno di Strada, which we looked at just last week. And yeah, if you want a link to the recording that I'm listening to, it's in the video description. Right. Yeah, very cool piece. I was almost nodding off a little bit there because I'm very tired, but that it has nothing to do with my interest in the piece. It was very interesting throughout. It was just very hypnotic at times. Yeah, a lot of techniques that were in the song cycle we looked at earlier, but I think this was a more through composed integrated use of them. And this stuff with the heartbeat and the breathing, especially at the very beginning, is like dead simple to write, but very, very powerful in its like minimalism, how exposed it is. So as it's the mark of a, well, I shouldn't say something too cheesy, but you can tell that Sciarrino at this point in his career has written a lot of music because he is not just trying to show off with all these techniques. He has more sophisticated sections where everything's very complicated and dense, and then he has sections that are just very simple and add so much to the piece. The pacing and the drama of it is really good. The climax where there's like some sort of melodic thing being introduced, I forgot that there's like a string overpressure distortion drone at the same time, and it sounds almost like a AM radio static or something. It's very evocative. These techniques, for the most part, are very, very quiet. Like, if you saw this live, it would be incredibly quiet. And you really notice that when there are these, like, fortissimo micro moments that burst out of the ensemble because they're so much louder than the majority of the piece, everything that's happening around them. And it's very powerful because you're kind of on the edge of your seat, and you don't know when another outburst like that's going to happen, and you're listening very closely to these quiet things. And I think the breathing into the instrument, like the flute, and the breathing into the brass instruments, like, to match that dynamic level with everything else that's going on, you have to be able to play incredibly, incredibly quiet. And the breathing is actually a very good way to measure the quietness of the ensemble. That's something very concrete to measure yourself against. It's one of the quietest sounds that you can make with a wind instrument or a brass instrument. So definitely very functional. And yeah, hopefully you found it as interesting as I did. This is also another piece which kind of has to be for chamber orchestra. You could not do this with a full orchestra. So that's another interesting thing about it, and I'm glad that it's on this roster here. So on the docket tomorrow, you know what? I think we're going, as much as I want to go to Grisey tomorrow, we're going to look at another chamber opera by Peter Maxwell Davies. That'll be tomorrow's thing. So stay tuned for that.